Welcome to my mid-year reading check-in. I'm really excited to do this because part of me assumed that when I started up these book reviews back in August of last year that I would have thrown in the towel before the middle of 2021, but here we are. So I'll go over some of my favorites so far for 2021 and also talk about some of my biggest disappointments for this year. I'll also talk about the fiction books I'm reading for the first time on this channel and discuss what I am most excited about for Rev Reads moving forward. First, the numbers. I set a Goodreads goal to read 56 books in 2021, and I am blowing that goal right out of the water with 38 books so far this year. I think the number is a little higher than years past because the channel gives me just that little bit extra push, that little extra motivation to keep reading. And I've also read several books this year that I just didn't want to put down. So I've read more page turners than books that I really labored to get through, and that helped increase the numbers. So a couple of weeks ago, I went back into my Goodreads account and I changed my goal for number of books to read this year to 70 books. And I want to say to you, if you are not on Goodreads yet, join, set yourself a reading goal for the rest of 2021, and then help hold yourself accountable by that goal. Friend request me as well. I am on Goodreads as Rev Reads. Now, some standard mid-year recap questions to go through. And I'll save my question on what is my favorite book so far this year for last. First, what's the most surprising book that I read? And this book, I would say, is one that I thought was really good but didn't expect to be good, so it surprised me. And that book is Early Christianity in North Africa. I expected that book to really be a chore to kind of wade through, lots of boring and dull history, but I really learned a lot in the book. I filled some of the holes in my ignorance, and I am super happy to have read Early Christianity in North Africa. Next, my most disappointing book, and this is an easy one. I was really looking forward to reading Brave New World for the very first time. And having read it for the first time this year, I gotta say, I think this book is very important. It makes very powerful and timely statements on our society, on totalitarian states. It's especially important in regards to the transgender and the LGBTQ plus movement. But at the same time, while it's an important book, it was horribly written. The characters were dull. I just got to say, it was terrible in my opinion. Now, I loved 1984. That book was fascinating, but I hated Brave New World. The most shocking book of the year, and that is Unseen Realm by Michael Heiser. I just couldn't put the Unseen Realm down. He shocked me again and again and again. Some of the shocks were really good. Other ones were not so good. If you want an intriguing book to read in the second half of this year, Unseen Realms is that book. The most important book of 2021 is Eternal Life by Lucas Kinchen. People are just confused on the gospel in the church today. And if there's anything that we want the church to have clarity on today, it is the gospel. And what Lucas is so great at. God has given him a gift for this. That's the only way I can imagine him being this good at it, and also probably a lot of hard work to get the clarity that he has. But Lucas has clarity for how to present the gospel. So if you want to know how to share your faith, Eternal Life by Lucas Kinchen is where to start. Worst book for the year so far is The Incredible Catholic Mass by Martin Van Kokum. The worst thing about this book is that it exposed me to some stuff about medieval Catholic theology that I had no idea about, and some of it is kind of gross, and I hated reading through it. The Incredible Catholic Mass was written before the 20th century, so I don't know how much in this book would be rejected by the Catholic Church today, but Van Kokum talks about seeing these visions and people sacrificing baby Jesus on the altar and drinking the infant's blood, and then he also talks about purgatory as Christians, as Catholics, being burned alive in fires worse than anything that could be present on this earth. So according to Van Kokum, every Catholic who isn't a saint is going to be burned in fires of torment before they go to heaven. And that was it was hard to read through. It was some of the most difficult stuff I've gone through in 2021. Now, my favorite fiction book for 2021. I didn't read a ton of fiction so far this year. The fiction books I've read are Swiss Family Robinson, Brave New World, which I've already mentioned, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Star Wars Heir to the Empire, Shadows of the Hegemon by Orson Scott Card, and The Rhythm of War. Well, my runaway favorite for favorite fiction of the year by far was Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. I love Sanderson's work. Brandon Sanderson is my favorite fiction author. And while I think he slipped a little bit in his third book in the Stormlight Archives, which Rhythm of War is the fourth book in his massive Stormlight Archive series, he really stepped it back up with Rhythm of War. So far, favorite fiction book of the year. I don't really see a chance of anything passing it this year. My favorite overall book for 2021 is Grace, Salvation, and Discipleship by Charlie Bing. I love this book. I love the concept. It is so very well written. He handles all of the objections to the faith alone gospel and then also clearly proclaims the importance of discipleship and how discipleship fits into the Christian's life. I said this was the top free grace book to own when I first put out my review of that book, and I'm still standing by that right now. A few other thoughts on the year. I read several books on the idea of biblical justice in 2021 that is contrasting God's justice with the social justice that is being pushed by the world today. And I wanted to have a category of my favorite biblical justice book so far this year, and I just couldn't pick one because all of them had different focus, different ways that they really geared in on stuff, and so I liked them all for different reasons, so I couldn't pick a favorite. But my recommendation to every Christian in 2021 would be to read one of these books that I've read so far this year on biblical justice, and then I'd also love it if every Christian read the Communist Manifesto, and then third, I think every Christian should read a book about a Christian who has suffered in church history directly under communism. So this is someone who suffered for persecution over the last 100 years under a communist regime. I think when you read all three of those books, one, it will allow you to see the gravity of the social justice movement and where it will end up going if it's allowed to go to its ends. It will also allow you to be able to speak competently about the social justice movement, critical race theory, wokeism, and how to talk about how it contradicts and goes against what God says. And the Communist Manifesto, reading that is so important because it will allow you to see that what is being proclaimed so much today, and it seems so new, so radical, really, it's just the old teachings of Karl Marx that were from the 19th century regurgitated and brought out in a new fashion today. And if you read the Communist Manifesto, it's really easy to see how anytime somebody talks about equity or oppression, they're really just using Marxist terms, Marxist language, and their goals will always be to get rid of religion and to get rid of the church so that the government can cover all categories and really dominate life in the belief that if we gave all the power to government, it would make everyone equal. So read books on biblical justice. I think it's very important right now. And I'm also really excited about what's coming up for the next half year on my Rev Reads channel. I have a few more author interviews that are lined up. I already am in talks to interview Tim Chaffee, who is the author of the book Fallen. So we're going to talk about Nephilim, which should be a fascinating conversation. I'm going to be talking to a giant about giants in the Bible. I also have two more reviews lined up that are going to be coming out on YouTube in conjunction with the launch of new books, and I'm just over the moon to have the opportunity to help new authors as soon as their book hits the market. And I'd like you to know that if you have any recommendations of books you think I should read and review, please send them over to me. Some of my best reviews are by books that were recommended to me by viewers. And I also want to give a huge thank you to everyone who watches my channel, especially to those who subscribe to the channel. I have really been humbled by the response to Rev Reads over the last 6 months. When I began the channel back up in August, my thinking was, if I could collect 50 subscribers before the channel ends, I would be thrilled. And if I could get 300 views a month, I would love it. If I could have 10 people watching my channel each day, getting good quality Christian reviews, book reviews, I would be happy. And right now my channel's at over 400 subscribers. I have 3,000 views a month, which might not seem a lot compared to other YouTube channels, but for me it's just like, oh, I can't believe it. So I just want to say thank you to everybody, especially for those who give encouraging words, friendly comments. It really means a lot. And if you're not a subscriber, there's still time to join before it gets too crowded in the group. And I also want to encourage you to begin making your own plans to be able to finish your 2020 year of reading strong. So I hope you enjoyed my mid-year recap, and come back again for lots more reviews in the second half of 2021.